entering Western Australian ports are to contact the harbour master of where you intend to dock, or contact Coast Radio Headland or Coast Radio Perth to report your movements.
So yeah, I'm halfway through refit at the moment, guys. Taking a long time, like always, but getting there. Got survey today, so I got all the safety gear out, ready to go. So I thought I'd take the chance to show you guys what's involved, what we have on board, and yeah, everything that's required to keep a commercial passenger vessel in survey these days. So yeah, AMSA gives you a list of gear that you need for all your different classes of survey. Our vessel's in a class 1C, which is the main one. It's also in a 2B, which is more of a commercial fishing class, but it does mean you can go further offshore for longer amount of time. So there's other stuff we need just particularly for that one, but the main one's the 1C, which means we can go 30 miles offshore with 20 people on board essentially. So yeah, so we'll go through all the gear. I'll go through the gear in the list that AMSA gives you. So yeah, first up on the list is the life rafts. Two 10-man life rafts. They live upstairs on the bridge. They have to be serviced every 2 years. Ours, most life rafts are every year, but ours every 2 years they need to get serviced. One's away being serviced right now, and they're just set up so they can float away free if they need to, with a hydrostatic release on them. If the boat pretty much if it goes underwater, the life rafts release and can self-deploy because they're attached to the boat. And they're also attached in a way that if the boat continues to sink, they won't drag the life raft down. They've got all the bunch of safety gear on board, flares and food and all that kind of stuff, and also got an Epirb in each one of them as well. So the next thing is life jackets, and obviously we need one for everyone on board. We can take up to 20 people, so we've got 20 life jackets on board. They've all got a whistle and a light. Lights are automatically activating. If I wet my finger here, put it across there, you see that'll start flashing. So I'll dry that off. Press the button and she stops. So yeah, 20 life jackets. They have to be a certain rating. And we also have a couple of inflatable ones. They're mainly used for crew. I like to wear them if it's just the two of us on board with no one else. So if one of us does happen to fall over, at least we're wearing a life jacket. So flares. For our 1C survey, we only need one set of flares, but because we've also got the 2B, which is 200 mile offshore, we've pretty much carried two full sets. A normal set is 3 rockets, 2 handheld red and 1 smoke. So you can see here we've got 2 full sets of them. There are rocket flares, handheld reds, and then smoke flares, and we've got a few spare of them. They all obviously have to be in date as well. Another simple thing that you have to have is a torch for every crew member. So we have up to 4 crew in our survey, so yeah, torch for each one of them, 4 torches. We obviously have more than 4 on board, but these are the 4 that we keep put aside in case of emergencies and for survey, and obviously a spare battery for them as well. I'll keep going with all the safety gear while we've got it out here. So yeah, like I said, we've got the flares, the torches, and we've also got 2 flags. They're signalling flags. We carry N and C, which is the minimum requirement. The good thing about carrying those 2 is you fly one at a time, and you can pretty much communicate with another ship by saying yes or no. Or if you fly them both at a time, it means you're in distress. So just with those 2 flags, it's obviously 3 different signals, and distress being the main one that we're able to display. A couple of extra bits and pieces that I hung on to but aren't necessarily in survey. Some dye, so you chuck that in the water if you're in life rafts, and that can be seen from the air a long way away, and a few glow sticks. Also carry a signalling mirror. This is part of survey. It might seem a little bit silly, but it's an amazingly effective and small, easy bit of kit to carry, so that's why it's still on the list. Radar reflector. Bit of a funny one. We're in a big aluminium boat, so we reflect quite well. But obviously, if you are in the life rafts, if you manage to take that with you, it's a good thing too. Other boats will show up on their radars much easier if we got that thing set up. So that folds out into a bit of a funny square shape, so it reflects on other people's radars quite well. Another thing in this tube here, we've got our marine charts. Bit of a funny one these days. You wouldn't think we'd use them, which we essentially don't with GPS and everything. And despite having a couple of backup GPSs, it's always good to have your charts, just in absolute case of emergency, you lose power and everything like that. And we've got all the other gear, compasses and everything else on board that we can actually navigate just with the charts. All right, Epirbs. We carry a total of 4 Epirbs on board this vessel. We've got one in each life raft. And now we've also got the one in the cab, which is manually operated. And they obviously have to be in date with the batteries all good now as well. And you have to test them all the time as well to make sure they're still good. So that one's manually operated one. This one's the Float 3 Epirb, so if the boat does sink and this goes underwater at all, it will automatically release. So in there you've just got your standard Epirb. So this one's water activated, so if it becomes submerged at all, it'll automatically operate. So obviously that's why it's got the cover, you don't want to get it wet. And we've got the hydrostatic release in there, which will actually pop the Epirb out if this becomes submerged at all. That's a relatively new thing. We only had to get that at the start of last year. So obviously radios are another big part of your survey as well. Not only need to have them, but they need to work. So we carry the 2 main radios, which is the VHF, which is the same as what everyone uses on boats. That's the main one these days. The 27 megs are pretty much out of date, so that's your main one, which we do use day to day. So we also have to carry the HF radio. A little bit old school. I like actually having the old one. Very nice and easy to use. Obviously it's only the type of thing you'd be using in an emergency, so you don't want it complicated. Like I said, bit of old technology. Despite being called HF, high frequency, it's actually a very low frequency radio compared to the others. And what that does, it may not be very clear or easy to talk to with people, but it goes a very long way. So as well as the 2 radios, we also carry a satellite phone. This isn't part of survey, but it is something that I like to carry because we quite often operate definitely out of phone range and out of what's normal radio range to most people. So yeah, very old satellite phone, but it works quite well. So always obviously make sure it's charged, but that's pretty much the main thing I use if we can't get hold of people via phone or radio. So one of the biggest things on boats is actually your fire equipment. So yeah, the very first point of call, if there ever is a fire, or in the engine room anyway, we've got our fire system, which can be all fully automatic. So what's that is, I've actually got it pulled out of the boat at the moment because I had to send it away to be tested, which it does every 4 years. It has to be tested in the boat every year, but the cylinder itself has to be tested every 4 years. We're lucky, we've got an older system which I think is actually quite better. That's just a very high pressure cylinder full of fresh water, and obviously that just gets released into the engine room if needed, a very high pressure and mist, and normally does the job. We've also got fire flaps on the side there. What they do is shuttle them, and they cut the air to the engine room. So obviously we also run fire extinguishers. A few of them. We've got the one, a wet chemical or foam, and then the 3 dry chemical or powder. So they're kept throughout the boat, and they obviously have to be kept in date as well and tested every year. Still on firefighting, surprisingly enough, also in the survey, is a metal bucket. Two of them actually. They have to have a rope attached. Obviously if you're on a boat, there's plenty of water around. It's just a matter of getting it to the fire, where the fire is. So if all crap hits the fan and no motor or nothing like that, and your fire system doesn't work and your extinguishers are run out, you've obviously got an endless supply of water in the ocean, so you can just use the buckets. Sounds a little bit silly with all today's technology, but it's probably the most reliable bit of kit on the boat. If you can stop them from rusting, we had to replace them nearly every year. They actually have to be metal buckets by survey, so which is a little bit annoying on a boat, but it's all part of it. Obviously part of survey as well is your first aid kit. AMSA have got them all set up with different scales and equipment lists in there. Everything needs to be in date obviously as well. We have to carry a scale F first aid kit as well as a scale E medical cabinet for everyone on board. The way I run it is I've got our little medical cabinet, which is used for day-to-day stuff. I'm doing a bit of a stock take at the moment of that, so it's empty, but that's one thing you probably wouldn't normally find in a first aid kit, but it's probably one of our most used bits of kit in our first aid kit for cutting hooks off, getting them out of people's fingers. Not very nice, but it happens quite a bit. But our survey one I keep downstairs, which is this one. and that's got all the more serious stuff in it. I don't like to touch it unless we do actually have a proper emergency, and then I know everything's there. I carry a few additional items because I've got a bit of extra training. I'm a volunteer ambulance officer, and I've done some more training, so there's a few extra drugs and specialised equipment that I like to carry as well, because I know how to use them. So it's got all your standard stuff, your dressings, splints, some basic drugs, things like that. Bag valve mask for resuscitation, and then a few, like I said, the more serious things, airways that I like to keep, a couple of extra drug type stuffs, EpiPens, things like that, Ventolin, things like that. So we are pretty prepared. So up on the bridge we've also got the 2 life buoys. One of them is attached by a floating rope, so you can throw it to someone and then pull them in, and the other one is attached to a floating light buoy. The light buoy is automatically operated. It's in the holder upside down. You pull it out, turn it up the right way, and yet the light, well, the right way, the way it floats, and then the light comes on. So obviously it's not on all the time. It doesn't flatten the battery. So yeah, the 2 of them, they have to have the name of the boat and the unique identifier on them as well. With the unique identifier, that's a bit of a funny one. Over the last few years, we used to have our surveyed passenger vessel number, or SPV. Ours is SPV 077. And then there's a bit of confusion. AMSA said they wanted to use unique identifiers, and if you didn't have one, you just used Marine and Harbours number. So we changed to our Marine and Harbours number, and then they changed that you needed to apply for and get one of their unique identifiers, which we've now done. So, and that's on all the life buoys. It's on all the float away equipment on the boat, and obviously displayed on the side of the boat as well. Nav lights is another big one. They want to see that they all work. Another big thing about the boat is obviously the emergency bilge system. We've got the automatic bilge pump, which is in the main bilge, which obviously operates automatically. And as also part of that, we've got a bilge alarm. So that's a second float switch, a little bit higher than that one. So if that one stops working at all, we've pretty much got a high watermark alarm, which is very loud and very, very audible. Not the one you want to be hearing out on the water. If that's the case, we've got the emergency bilge system, which runs off the pump for the deck hose. Might have seen in one of my other videos, I use the deck hose to plumb into the cooling system on the boat. So it normally picks up from outside the raw water from outside the boat. But if you do get in a situation where you need it to empty the boat of water, it's also set up to do that. And that's just down here. So yeah, there's the normal raw water intake for the deck hose. Normally goes in there, through that valve, 3-way valve, and then out through the pump into the deck hose. What happens if we've got an emergency, we've got the 3 sections here, forward, engine room and tiller. We can open up one of them, those valves, and then move that valve to the other side, so that pump actually sucks from one of those 3 sections. If for any reason you don't actually have the engine room, you can then open up this valve, and that's a manually operated hand pump that will then suck from the section as well. If you're using that, you're in big trouble, because it definitely doesn't work as well as the main engine operated one. Yeah, so that's all the basic safety equipment that the surveyor will want to see. I've probably forgotten more that I've included, but that should be the basics of it. Obviously they'll also want to see that the boat's in good condition, everything's safe and maintained well as well. That's obviously a big thing. But other than that, that's the basics of it. So yeah, something a bit different, quick short video. Any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. And yeah, hopefully be back to fishing shortly. Cheers guys, bye. Getting everything ready for survey today, so I thought I'd take the chance to run through with you guys. Take 2.